Hi, everyone. This is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. This is the series where I speak about my ongoing history. Oh, I have a little guest that came to see me. I'm going to show you real quick before we get started. See who it is? It's little brother. He came to visit. He just is a little bit needy today. He's doing really good, but he's just feeling a tiny bit needy. He's been a little bit clingy today. I don't know. He might have a tummy ache, or he might be having a little bit of anxiety about something. But when he needs to, sometimes he just comes and sits next to me while I make a video with you. But oftentimes you don't see that and you don't hear anything because he's a very, very quiet little boy. This little guy is not a very vocal dog, and he is one of the most delightful little dogs that I've ever met in my life. He's about 9 years old. His name is Nemo, and he has a whole bunch of nicknames, but one of them is Little Brother. And because he came to our house when we had a dog that was around 5 years old. A little younger than that, maybe about 4 years old. And he came to live with us, and he got the nickname Little Brother because she needed to adjust to having a little brother in the house. And it's also a direct reference to the movie Mulan and her beautiful little pug dog whose name is Little Brother. So anyways, I just wanted to share that moment with you because Nemo came over and decided that he wanted a tiny bit of attention just as I was starting this video. So today's discussion, and again, I was explaining my videos are to show you the dual perspective that I have in my life of being a trauma survivor, trauma and abuse survivor, multiple forms of abuse, multiple forms of trauma, and also as a certified trauma recovery coach. And that is a mental health professional who has a specialty in trauma, but it means that I cannot diagnose, I cannot do counseling, I cannot do therapy, I cannot medicate anyone, I can't prescribe anything, and I cannot do any form of treatment. What does that leave then? If you're a certified trauma recovery coach, what does that mean? That means that you are trained to be and certified in being a peer-to-peer co-equal partner with a client, and to help offer them, not to help offer them, but to offer them tools, psychoeducation, that means information about how the central nervous system and the body work together and how they respond to trauma and how they recover from trauma, what the after effects of trauma are, and what we can do about it. So we offer lots and lots of information. We offer lots of attuned listening, active listening, support, compassion, empathy, a safe space for a person to be able to speak about their most private experiences and most private feelings. And we offer them that partnership that many individuals cannot find elsewhere out in the world, to have someone who listens to your story but does not judge you and does not have anything in the way of a planned outcome of what they think is best for you. Because a certified trauma recovery coach believes in having absolutely no planned outcome for our clients. We believe that the client knows exactly what their system needs. And when they make the decision for what they want to do, then we are their strongest supporter and ally in that decision for their desired outcome. And we do everything we can to help them get from where they are now to over there where they long to be in the safest way possible for them. So it brings me a lot of joy to be able to have this as my career, to have this as my purpose in life, and to have this as my basis for the videos that I make. What am I doing in my videos? I'm offering information for people who are trauma and abuse survivors to help them to know certain things that are the truth. And what we need is to replace the lies that we've been told with the truth. And in this case, today, we're speaking about how there are times in our life where we're with an abuser or in some way associated with an abuser. And that person takes the abuse so far as to do something called legal abuse. And so one of the things that if you ever look at the Duluth model, a place where you can find the Duluth model is at thehotline.org. It is the website that is what I consider to be the gold standard of websites for individuals who have been in abuse situations or currently are in abuse situations. It is a website that is devoted to sharing information and resources to people who've experienced intimate partner abuse and domestic violence, or spousal abuse, partner abuse, whatever you call it. That's what they are experts. They're experts in that topic. And so they've got all kinds of information for you there. And I can't recommend them enough. I've been on their website over and over and over and over again to get information. But one of the things that they have there that is, comes up on a screen is something called the Duluth model. And the Duluth model is something that all domestic violence counselors show their clients. And the people who originally created the Duluth model, obviously in Duluth, what they did was they came up with a way to show people. It's laid out very, and I say this again and again, it's laid out similarly to the Disney World and Disneyland map of the in Disney World in Florida, it's the map of Magic Kingdom. And in California, it's the map of Disneyland, but it's laid out like a wheel and it has different lands coming off of it. And it's very similar. The Duluth model is designed very similarly, where it shows, it's like wedges in a pie, and it shows you all the different types of abuse that abusers can do. But the fantastic thing about the people who create the Duluth model is that they have listened and been so attuned with people who are experiencing different forms of partnerships. Originally, it was made to show what domestic violence looks like, particularly with a heterosexual woman and a heterosexual man. And then as the world began to recognize that there are same-sex relationships, so there may be a Duluth model for gay men, for domestic violence for gay men, or intimate partner violence for gay men. And there might be one for lesbian women. And there might be one for people who are a couple, but they're non-binary. Or there might be one for particular demographic groups where a very specific type of abuse is done in that particular demographic. And so I think it's fantastic that they have printed them in every language. I think pretty much every major known language on the planet. And there's just these people who are absolutely dedicated to helping get the information out to the people who need it with information that is tailored to their needs. That is a huge undertaking for people to do. But one of the things that you will find on the original Duluth model, and it may be on multiple others now, I have not checked for this particular factor in them, but the concept of legal abuse as part of domestic violence. It most certainly is. And I'll give you an example of when it is. When legal abuse is part of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, it means that you are in a relationship with a person. It's an established relationship. Whether you have children or not is really insignificant in this particular moment. What happens is a person who wants to harm you will develop multiple different ways of harming you. So you might see on the Duluth model, on that wheel, you might see different spokes and wedges that say things like emotional abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse. There might be also on the one that you're looking at, legal abuse. Why would legal abuse be on a domestic violence chart or what we call a model? Okay, the Duluth model is, and other people might call it a schema. But what it means is that means that there's enough of established pattern out in the world where it has become something where they now educate about it. This happens so often that we now have educational tools that point out this is what can be part of domestic violence. And it changes as things, and I'm sorry to say this, but as new abuses get added in, they add those into the model. And so I imagine it's very possible that when the first Duluth model was created, legal abuse might not have been on it, but it is now. And I would like to share with you my experience of legal abuse. Okay. Legal abuse is something that I really didn't see that one coming. I did not. But I had an experience where on Thanksgiving Day, I believe it was in 2020 on Thanksgiving Day, when I said out loud to my spouse, I want a divorce. And 1 year later, the relationship was so full of acrimony that, and I think that I personally can see now, and I'm not recommending anybody do this or not do this, but saying out loud to your spouse, I want a divorce. What I learned about that, for me personally, it probably would have been better if I had not said that aloud, because what it did was it was like throwing gasoline on a fire, and any abuses that I was experiencing up to that point just kind of blew up. All of them blew up. What I will say is some of them were extremely uncomfortable. And one of them was silent treatment. Dr. Roberta Shaler used to say on her Monday night podcast, and I miss her tremendously, but she used to say to us, if someone's giving you the silent treatment, don't fight it. Just relax and enjoy the peace and quiet. Just don't, no, they're doing passive aggressive stuff at you, but you can just embrace that opportunity as, hey, that abusive person is not bothering me right now. And I get to just put my feet up, read the newspaper, do whatever I want to do, go on my computer, study something, whatever. But I'm going to embrace that peace and quiet instead of feeling punished by it. And so she was really giving people on her Monday night podcast, which was about abusive people, and she had a name that she trademarked for them. And so I won't say it on my videos, but because I don't have the right to say it, because it is a trademarked name. And just because dear Dr. Roberta Shaler, PhD, is not extant on this planet anymore. She went back to creation on April 3rd, 2024. But when she left this world, it didn't change the fact that her phrase for highly difficult people who are abusive, it didn't become untrademarked when that happened, when she left this world. So I won't say it, but if you're interested in learning about it, all I can do is recommend purchase Dr. Roberta Shaler's books and watch her podcast videos and the interviews on other people's radio shows and things like that, because she was a phenomenal educator about abuse tactics, and what we can do about it. So she was a huge influence in my life, and she was a huge influence in me deciding to become a certified trauma recovery coach. So what we have is these people who are so, like what I was saying is, when I said out loud that I wanted to get a divorce, I should have thought that through a little bit before saying it out loud to my abuser, because what happened at that point was just like a silent war. It just became, you're the enemy, and I'm going to start pulling people over into my camp to help me fight you. And that meant, I'm coming after your family. I'm going to co-opt your family and bring them over as allies on my side. And it turns out my feeling on that is, have at it. You think those people are going to partner with you? Go ahead and try. I tried that for over 50 years. It didn't work out so great. And it didn't go so great to the point of me going full no contact. No, it was just not, it just was not something. If it didn't work out for me, they're certainly not going to stick your neck out for you. But go ahead and try if you want to go in that direction, and try. He did. But what happened with the legal abuse, and legal abuse, as I said, is part of domestic violence. And that is when someone can start harassing you with lawsuits or threats of lawsuits. And there is something that exists in our world, and it's called vexatious lawsuits. And I'm going to read just a little bit from an AI overview about vexatious litigation. Okay, this is part of legal abuse. Vexatious litigation is a legal action that is intended to harass or cause financial or emotional distress to an adversary, rather than seeking a legitimate legal remedy. In a divorce case, a claim may be considered vexatious if it is brought for an improper motive. We'll come back to that, such as to delay or harass the other party. Some examples of vexatious litigation include filing a frivolous lawsuit. Excuse me, I get the hiccups sometimes when I speak. Filing a frivolous lawsuit, repetitively filing meritless motions, and using the judicial system to terrorize or abuse another party. Stick a pin in that one, because that's what happened. A court may sanction a party for vexatious litigation and may even prohibit them from filing new lawsuits without permission. Some jurisdictions keep a list of vexatious litigants who are often unable to retain legal counsel and must represent themselves in court. If you believe you are the victim of vexatious litigation, you may be able to bring a claim for malicious prosecution to seek compensation. So that is just a very brief overview, an AI overview of vexatious litigation. Now, I will explain to you how my spouse filed a lawsuit against me. The lawsuit was to make me the defendant in a divorce lawsuit where he was suing me. So he was the plaintiff and I was the defendant. And he did this at a time that was just a sickening time to do that to a person. Now, what I mean by that is I was the healthcare proxy for my elderly mother who had late stage Alzheimer's, or, at that time, it was late stage Alzheimer's for certain, because it was time to put her on hospice. She was already in a care home. She lived in an assisted living home in upstate New York, an assisted living facility. And I was the person who was her healthcare proxy. My spouse and I did not live in the same house anymore because the abuse got so bad that I had to say, look, we're fortunate enough to own 2 homes. I cannot live with you anymore because the boundaries that you keep crossing, I've made very, very clear to you. I have been in counseling for a long time. I've told you I went to multiple different counselors over a few years that were advising me what is the best way to deal with a person who does these certain abuses to you. And many of you might be going, why didn't you just leave? Why did you go to counseling? Why didn't you just leave? Because lives are more complicated than that. And my husband and I are the parents, co-parents to a mentally handicapped adult child. He had a severe traumatic brain injury from an accident, and we are the parents of this individual. And I did not want to go through an abrupt leaving and not be able to have contact with my adult handicapped child. And I also wanted to not do anything that I didn't think clearly through and have an actual solid plan. And since I was not experiencing at that time, I was not experiencing physical abuse. That came later. But there was eventually physical domestic violence in my household, and I was the target. I was the person who was battered. But before that had happened, I was listening to Dr. Roberta Shaler weekly, attending her podcast Monday nights, and again, what she was saying is, if you are in physical danger, if you are being physically abused, you have to get out now. But her advice to all of us was, if you're not in physical danger, stay where you are as long as you can to create a solid plan and keep working towards the goal of getting away, but do it in a place where you are in a safe environment and that you still have your most basic need, still have your most basic needs met. The last thing in the world you want to do is, when you don't have to bug out without a plan and then have to go back. When you run out of resources, you don't have a place to stay, or you can find yourself cut off from your health insurance, your dental plan, off your auto insurance. All of these different things can happen to you very suddenly, and then it can have an absolutely devastating effect on you. And so the most important thing that we were being taught in the Monday night podcast was, if it's not physical abuse, stay where you are and do something every single day towards your goal of getting away from this person, getting your ducks in a row, getting money set aside, getting educated, things like that, so that you can have a way to support yourself, a place to live, and to get your most basic needs met through different means than what your partner provides. So here's what happened. The abuse got to the point, and I'll speak about the abuse, what type of abuse it was. It was verbal abuse, it was emotional abuse, it was psychological abuse, it was neglect. It was medical neglect. It was financial abuse for certain. The financial abuse was present in the entire marriage, the entire time. But my spouse was committing things like check fraud against me. Like, when our tax return came, I didn't know about it. It was made, we filed jointly. We were married, filing jointly. And when our tax return check would come, he would go pick it up at the accountant's office, and he would sign it, and he'd forge my name on it. And then when the actual paper check arrived in the mail, he would forge my name on that and do what he wanted with it. And that is illegal. I never gave permission for anybody to sign my name on anything, any document, anywhere, ever. And so that was just one of the things that was happening that was, that's financial abuse, but it's also fraud. And one of the ways that an abuser may be abusing you over a significant period of time is through fraudulent, illegal activities. And so if you call them out on it, well, when I did, the only response I got was, well, I've been doing it for years and you didn't care about it till now. So you don't really have a leg to stand on. Just allowing me to do that to you for, 35 years is, that's on you. You didn't stop it. That means that you were given permission by not saying no. And that is a straight up lie. We do not give permission for somebody to do something to us if we're too beaten down, too worn down, too torn down, too trauma bonded, too depressed, and too what's the best word for it? Conditioned. You've been conditioned to not fight anymore. The fight's gone out of you. If you've gone through this long enough, intensely enough, and you just figure, what good does it do anyways? I said no 30 years ago, and you still did it anyways, and you've done it every year for 35 years. I can't get this to stop. And I didn't even recognize that was a crime and that I could have prosecuted for that. But even if I did, what would have happened? Now I know a vexatious lawsuit would have come from it. If I had prosecuted him for stealing from me for all those years and committing check fraud, I believe very strongly now, because he did do a vexatious lawsuit and he didn't have any remorse for doing it. But that could actually be one of the results if I did. I recognize that now. If back then, if I had said anything about you don't have my permission to do this, it must stop. And if you do it one more time, you will find yourself being, having charges pressed on you for check fraud. If I had done that, I absolutely believe he would have done the vexatious lawsuit that he did to me in 2023. I think he would have done it back then. I really do. I believe that. But let's talk about a vexatious lawsuit in reality. What does that look like? Well, I'll explain to you what mine looked like. As I said, it was time for me to put my mother on hospice. I was approached by her providers in her care home, and they said, it's time. She needs hospice care now. She'd had a visit to a hospital for an infection, and the physician who was treating her was somebody I knew very well because I worked at that hospital in emergency department. And for right now, I'll just say that doctor wanted her to not have to keep coming in and having painful treatments that aren't going to help. So what he said was, it's time, when she gets discharged, talk to the facility. I'm going to recommend to them that they speak to you about putting your mom on hospice. So don't be alarmed when they call you and say that it's time to be put on hospice. I'm the person who's getting the ball rolling. So you will understand, where did this come from? It came from me. He was being very, very conscientious as a physician by doing that, by giving me that piece of information. But so that's what happened. And it happened in March of 2023. So I was not living with my spouse. I was not communicating anything about my mother's care or her condition with my spouse at all, because my spouse had already gone into her care home months before and attempted to exploit her and to use her for his personal pawn in his smear campaign against me. He went there, and I found this out later, and he actually admitted it to me, that he went there to get her. He walked right into the dining room during the height of COVID, walked right in, sat down next to her and said, I need you to talk to your daughter, and I need you to tell her that I should live in the house with her. I need you to tell her that she needs to get back into the marriage with me. and that's what's best for her. I know what's best for her, and I know that you know what's best for her. So you need to tell her that she needs to just, this is the exact words, but this is what it meant. You need to tell your daughter to straighten up and fly right and give me what I want. And since she's inconveniencing me by living separately from me, she thinks I abuse her. And the message was loud and clear. Something's wrong with your daughter mentally because she doesn't want to be in a relationship with me. And that proves it right there. She's lost her mind. You need to talk her into getting psychiatric help and to getting moved in, getting me back moved into the house, getting me to move back into the house. He wanted to live with me. Why? Because he was rattling my cage really badly, really, really intensely, because he's going through a narcissistic injury. Narcissistic injury can happen just from telling a narcissistic abuser. All abusers are narcissistic, but to tell a narcissistic person, you don't have control over me anymore. I think for myself, I'll do what I think is best for myself. I will have equality in the relationship. There will be reciprocity in the relationship. There will be mutuality in the relationship. There will no longer be abuse in the relationship. And if any more of that happens, I'm gone. Well, what happened was a whole lot more of that happened after I stated my boundaries again and again and again and again and again. So this person decided that, no, this, me being pushed away from you and having to live in a separate house, which we owned, mortgage was paid long ago. There was no added expense to living there. We had already owned 2 houses for quite some time, and we knew about the, the expense of the taxes and the utilities. We understood that, but he was not pushed out into homelessness. He was told, you can't live at this house with me anymore because you're harming me. And it's documented in multiple different places that you are harming me these ways. And since you won't stop and you've been asked to stop, now you must go live over there. And for many of you, that moment when you split with your partner, that could be the moment where everything blows up and now all of a sudden they're going to become a vexatious litigant. They're going to try to use, if they've done smear campaign against you, doesn't matter if they have or haven't, but if they have, they might have a bug put in their ear by somebody that they've smeared you with. We refer to these people as flying monkeys. Okay, the narcissist has flying monkeys out in the community who do their bidding and report back to them, just like the Wicked Witch of the West in the Wizard of Oz. And so that those people might be saying, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to start a lawsuit, and you need to sue that, you sue your spouse for, it might even be saying, you need to sue my sister for everything. She needs to lose everything. It should all go to you in the lawsuit. And I'm going to coach you a little bit on how to do this. Or it might be your sister-in-law, or it might be your brother-in-law, or it might be some guy down the street. Could be your son's girlfriend or your daughter's boyfriend. There could be all kinds of different influences that kind of put it in their consciousness, or they might do it all on their own without talking to anybody. Could go either way. But in my case, I strongly suspect that certain people were saying things and saying, this is what you should do. If you want to get back in that house, you got to play hardball with her. And if that means if you are going to get her back, and she hasn't done anything that you've asked for, she hasn't done anything that you've pleaded for, she hasn't done anything that you've demanded, now it's time to bring in the big guns, which means you're going to take it to court. And you can sue her for every single thing that she owns in the world. You can threaten her with taking her to court. And if when she gets served, she's going to be shocked. And then if she still doesn't give you what you're demanding, then you go ahead and go through with that lawsuit, and you take every single one of her worldly possessions away from her. And then you make sure that when the divorce is final and the judge has granted you everything that you're asking for or demanding, as the case may be, in their divorce petition, they list every single thing that they're seeking. What it says right in the divorce petition, that when they're in court in front of the judge is going to ask you, is there anything since the time this divorce petition was made for you at your attorney's office? Has anything else come to your attention that you would like to have included? Because now is the time to tell me. I'm about to make your divorce decree final. If there's anything else that you want from that person, you need to tell me now so we can include it in this. And some of you might be going, but that's not possible. There's no judge in the world who's going to do that. I have spoken to 3 separate attorneys and 2 judges, and they all assured me, absolutely, this can happen without a doubt. Don't think for 1 second that no judge in the world is ever going to allow that. They explained very carefully to me how we can lose everything in something called a default judgment. When somebody is doing a vexatious lawsuit, particularly a cruel and inhumane divorce lawsuit, where they decided just arbitrarily themselves, they've decided with their attorney that when the divorce happens, that they are taking 100% of the couple's assets and leaving their spouse with goose egg, with nothing. There is a way that a vexatious litigant, if they have found themselves, and some of them go shopping for an attorney who will do this. They might have the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 say to them, I'm not doing that. No, I don't engage in that kind of cruelty towards anybody. The only kind of divorces that I will work with are fair and equitable divorces, where each person is entitled to 50% of the marital assets. And, if there's something in there in the property that was inherited property that's not divisible, then that would go to that person and it would not be touchable in the divorce, such as a house or a sum of money that was bequeathed to someone in a will. That's not divisible property. But things that you purchased together, things that both people worked towards, or one partner was working and the other one stayed home with the children. The person who stayed home with the children is not a freeloader. They were a person who was keeping the house running, keeping the children fed, supervised, doing all the things that children need while the other parent is at work. And so they don't consider that in a court case. Well, you worked for 40 years. The spouse didn't work for 40 years. Therefore, you get everything and the spouse gets nothing. They don't do that. That's the 1800s. None of that's going on now. What happens now is the court considers the input, the work that the stay-at-home spouse was doing absolutely to have value. And it was work. It is part of maintaining a household and a family and keeping things running healthy and in a smooth way. And when one person decides that they're going to be the person who goes and works outside the home, and the other person decides to be the stay-at-home parent, that is taken into consideration in the court. But an abusive person wants to use that. They think they can use that to their advantage. Well, I earned all or most of the money for years until the kids were grown, and then you went back into the workforce. Therefore, I earned the money. Everything is mine. My spouse did not consider the homes that we own to be owned partly by me. He did not see it that way. He saw every single asset in the world that we own together as 100% owned by him. And he went to an attorney who wrote up a divorce petition that told me, I'll tell you what things were in the divorce petition. that I was to be paying 100% of his legal fees. I was going to be paying him monthly maintenance for the rest of my life for, until such time if he gets remarried. But, he was 60 years old when he filed for the lawsuit. And that both properties would go to him. All of the contents of both homes would go to him. All furnishings therein, every single thing inside the homes goes to him. Both vehicles go to him. Retirement accounts, bank accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts, all goes to him. And dental insurance, medical insurance, life insurance, homeowners insurance, medical, I think I said medical insurance, automobile insurance, all of that I would no longer have any access to. Why would I need automobile insurance anymore? Taking my vehicle, right? But every single thing that we have that's financial or in any way an asset was made extremely clear in this divorce petition. 100% is going to him. Nothing goes to me. So I had a conversation with him on March 31st, 2023. And it was the same month that I had been served. I got served on March 11th, 2023. And when that, a couple weeks had gone by, and I was having conversations with him, and I recorded all of my conversations. And my question was, are you seriously going to go through with this lawsuit of yours? Because what we're talking about is you've made very clear, you've made extremely clear in your lawsuit, in your divorce petition, that you are absolutely intending to make me homeless and penniless. And he said, that's correct. Yes. And I said, on the day that your divorce goes through, oh, and I forgot to tell you, I was told again and again that I was not going to be able to use 1 cent of marital finance, okay, not 1 single cent of our money that was in the bank to pay for an attorney for myself. He said, I get an attorney, you're going to represent yourself in court. That's how it is. I'm taking everything from you. You don't get any representation. And I said, how come you get to have an attorney and I don't get to have an attorney? And he said, because I'm not paying 1 cent for somebody to work against me. That would be ridiculous. So you're going to have to find somebody in the world that's going to pay for your legal fees because you're paying mine. He said, it's in my divorce petition. You are going to reimburse me for all of my finance, for my legal fees. And you're going to have to find a way to pay your own, but it's not coming out of marital money. It's not coming out of marital finances. And I said, do you at all recognize the inhumane cruelty of what you're doing? And he said, no, I don't think it's inhumane or cruel at all. It's not. There's nothing cruel about getting divorced. People do it all the time. And I said, okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that you don't have a conscience at all. So my question to him on the phone, it's a recorded phone call on March 31st, 2023 was, so let's say, for instance, we get all the way to the end of this process and the judge for our divorce case asks you from the bench if there's anything else that you want that you hadn't thought of to put in your divorce petition. And you come up with a couple more things that you want to, and those get added in. And he asks you now, is there anything else after those things added? And you say, no, I think I'm good. And that divorce says, okay, well, I'm putting my signature on your final divorce decree. And from this day forward, you have had complete and total dissolution of your marriage. And telling me in the courtroom, you now have to surrender everything to him. And you have to give him the keys to your car and the keys to your house. And you have to walk away. And I said, do you recognize that on that day, I'll be standing on the driveway, and it could happen in the dead of winter. I'll be standing on the driveway with 2 dogs and their leashes in my hand, and I'm handing you the car keys, and I have on the clothes that I'm wearing, because I can't take a single thing from the house or from either house. Anything that's inside the house is considered to be his. It's considered to be yours, I should say. And now I have to walk from where I live into the city. First stop is to surrender my animals, my precious dogs. I have to surrender them an animal shelter. And I can't, it costs money to do that. And I would not be able to take a dime from our checking account to be able to even pay the surrender fees for my dogs. So I got to walk to a homeless shelter, but try at an animal shelter on the way on foot. I got to hand over my dogs and then walk to a homeless shelter. And I said, are you aware that that's what that day is going to look like? That's exactly what will play out on our driveway. And he said, yes, I'm aware that will happen. And I said, do you understand what you're doing to me? Do you really think that I deserve, or that any human being or any animal deserves to have that done to them? And he said, I have paid money to an attorney. She is my counsel. And if she's recommending that I do this to you, then that is what I have to do to you. I've paid for it already. And I said, okay. All right, then. Very good. Now, just days after this, I began to send emails, not emails, but sending texts to him that said, I implore you to drop your lawsuit against me, to withdraw your lawsuit from the court. And he said, well, are you going to get back together with me? And I said, no, but I think that for you to do this level of legal abuse to me is beyond reprehensible. You don't have the right to do this to me. And I said, I am physically disabled. I have severe back problems. And I have no means to support myself. If I have no home to live in, that means I have no place to work from. I work from home. I would not be able to support myself anymore. And the idea of having to have my dogs treated that inhumanely, to have to no longer have a home with me because somebody wants to hurt the 3 of us so severely that they're getting some sort of sick pleasure from a vexatious lawsuit. So when I asked, will you please, I implore you, please withdraw your divorce petition. From March 11th all the way to, I think it was somewhere around the 10th of May. It took over 2 months, or approximately 2 months, for him to recognize that this wasn't going to go well for him. And what he was doing was using the Supreme Court of New York State, because in New York State, all divorces go through the Supreme Court. And it's state Supreme Court. Every single day that I had that lawsuit hanging over my head was a day of absolute terrorization, traumatization, and misery. And he was using that the same way a cat will catch a mouse, but they won't just eat it. A lot of them will not just eat it. They will hold it between their paws, throw it up in the air, let it get away like a foot away, and then recatch it. Let it get away and recatch it, and just torturing that poor little creature. And that's the way he was treating me. This whole thing was designed and created to be a tool of torture. A vexatious lawsuit from a vexatious litigant, a person who files what's known also as a false lawsuit or a harassing lawsuit. When they do this, it gives the abuser what do they want? What's the whole point of controlling a person, of doing any abuse to a person? To have power and control over them. So he was absolutely getting power and control over me. And he loved the feeling that he could control. He had an on switch and an off switch for me to be terrorized. When we think about that for a moment, how sick is that for an individual to say, I'm going to hold dominion over your emotions, and I'm going to cause you to feel the most intense fear, the most intense agony, the most intense disgust, the most intense feelings of trauma. I'm just completely, utterly traumatizing you. I'm destroying your trust. I'm making you terrified about how you're going to survive. And when somebody is taking your survivability and playing with it, literally messing with whether or not you can survive, that is the ultimate power play. And that person is exerting the most horrifying control over you that you may have ever felt in your life, when they're using the court system in our country for no other purpose than to terrify and traumatize you, to just cause terror inside of you, that every single thing that you love is going away. Your comfort, your safety, your things that build the fabric of your life, the furniture you've collected, the photographs that you have, every single thing that represents nurture and nourishment. Home is deeply, deeply symbolic of nurturing, nourishing, safety, stability. And when someone does something to purposely turn you out, and they've got the law on their side, what he was telling me was, the day that you leave and you hand me the keys and I see you walking down the street, possibly in a snowstorm, with the dogs to head 18 miles from where we live, I'm not going to feel anything. I'm just going to go inside and shut the door and maybe put on another sweater, watch some football, drink my beer, and not feel one single shred of guilt or shame for what I just did to another human being and 2 dogs. That is exactly what a person can be like. But for decades before, leading up to that moment, everybody might look at that person and think, that is the most magnanimous man I've ever met, or that is absolutely the loveliest woman I've ever met. I really like them. They're such a great person. What happened with my spouse is that he kept this hidden from a lot of people. And I don't know whether or not my children were involved in this. I don't know. He told me that they were. But how much can you believe a lying liar who lies? You just never get a straight answer. We call that NASA, never a straight answer. You get NASA from an abuser every single time you ask a question. It's never a straight answer. So there's no real way to find out who was involved, who helped you, who coached you through this, or was it all you? And how many attorneys did you have to go through until you found one who was corrupt enough that they would engage in legal abuse of a client's spouse? So there are plenty of attorneys who have helped with, people who want to file a harassment lawsuit against a neighbor, not because the neighbor is harassing them and they want some legal recourse, but because they themselves feel like harassing the neighbor with a lawsuit. And they found an attorney that will allow them to file a vexatious lawsuit or a factitious lawsuit. So if any of you have experienced in your relationship or in any relationship at all, being falsely sued by someone for the purpose of traumatizing and terrorizing you, well, if it's your partner or your former partner, it's domestic violence or it's intimate partner violence. It is violence. It's also financial violence. It's emotional violence. It's psychological violence. It's verbal violence. Because the things that they say to you in the process, reaffirming, yes, I am doing this to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Every single interaction with them through the course of it is abusive. Now, this is how some of you may be wondering, how on earth did this end? Whatever happened? Well, this is why after the divorce petition was withdrawn from the Supreme Court in May of 2023, and he had told me over 200 times, he lied over 200 times on recorded phone calls and in person, that was recorded in person, that he had already withdrawn the divorce petition and there was nothing that I needed to do. I said, I'm going to need a receipt. Thank you. I'm going to need proof that you withdrew the case already. And he would say again and again, I already withdrew it. It's withdrawn. There's nothing you need to do. They didn't give me anything to give you. I just notified them that index number, whatever, is withdrawn and to take it out of the court system. And they did. It doesn't work that way. Both people have to go in. If you put in an answer, which means you contested the divorce, and I did. He tried to get me to not contest it. You see, because then he would have been able to go through with this without me being involved at all. I wouldn't have even had to be in the courtroom. In New York State, both people do not have to be present in order for a divorce to go through. So he kept on telling me, my attorney will tell you when the first court date is. And you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just wait to be notified by my attorney, and me will let you know when our first hearing is. And I said, if you think I'm stupid enough to fall for that your divorce attorney, who's allowing you to do this to your spouse, first of all, but they're participating in this, that person is going to be the person I trust to tell me what day I go to court with you, you are out of your mind. That is never going to happen. So what I was doing was every single time he told me that the case was withdrawn, I got the index number on my divorce petition, and I call the county clerk's office and I say, I have index number, this number. Could you please tell me if that case has been withdrawn? And they said, no, it is still a live case in the system. And be like, okay, thank you. And then I would say to him, you just lied to me again. I just called, I checked, what you told me was false. It is still a live lawsuit in New York State Supreme Court. And he would say, no, it is not. I already withdrew it. Why don't you trust me? You need to trust me that I made this go away. It's over. You are no longer a defendant in a lawsuit. He was trying desperately to get me to say, oh, okay, I believe you, and then never ask about it, never show up. Well, he finds out the first date of the hearing to go before a judge, and the judge would ask this question. I've checked with judges and attorneys. This is how it goes. They convince you not to show up, and they convince you not to put in an answer. And then at the day of the first hearing, the first question the judge has is, are you the plaintiff? Yes. Where's the defendant? Why isn't she here? And the attorney will most likely speak for the defendant, or excuse me, for the plaintiff, and say, the defendant didn't care enough about this case to even bother showing up to the first hearing. And it shows that they're, completely lackadaisical in their care about being served a Supreme Court of New York State divorce petition. And they disregarded the notice they were given. And I make a motion for the court to award Mr. whoever everything in their petition, and that no further litigation can, happen, no further appearances in court, that it all gets settled today, that the defendant is awarded everything in a default judgment because their spouse didn't even care enough to show up. And I've been told by 2 judges and multiple attorneys, they will most likely give a default judgment of every single thing that person's asking for in their lawsuit. But there's one more thing that the judge will ask. Is there anything else that you want that wasn't listed here? Because this is your last chance to add it in. And if they say, no, that's everything, then they say, okay, so granted. And they make the final divorce decree. And only took one time going to for an appearance before a judge. And that person just cleaned you out of every single one of your possessions, all of your money, all of your insurance. Because what happens is, in New York State, you have a certain number of days to get that person off of your insurance. So, I mean, it is mind-boggling how for just a few $1,000s, my spouse was willing to steal every single thing I own through the legal system in a perfectly legal way. And all it would take is some fancy footwork and some maneuvering that was coached to him by his attorney. She knew darn well to tell him, just tell her she doesn't have to show up. That's all you got to do, is just keep telling her she does not have to do anything. We'll let her know. We'll let her know what day to show up for the first hearing. And then they casually forget to let you know there was a first hearing scheduled. And it makes you look completely irresponsible. And then you lose everything in a legal way. Perfectly legal. The judge signs off on it, and that person can take everything. So why am I even speaking about this today? Because my story has value. I can help other people who are abuse survivors to understand, if you are in a relationship with a person who has no conscience, a person who has no ability to feel or express remorse, a person who has a high propensity to cheat and lie, to deceive, to find loopholes, to do things that are completely self-serving, while standing with their boot on the throat of anybody else who would dare oppose them. If you're in relationship with somebody who's like that, and they serve you divorce papers, it's time to be on high alert. If they're suing you for anything, it's time to be on high alert, because they will use the most unscrupulous, most disgusting, the most base methods of doing unspeakable harm to you in whatever way they can. And they will not feel one single bad feeling about it. They will not lose sleep about it. They will absolutely believe that the whole world is on their side, and they have every right to do what they're doing. And so we need to be careful when we're saying to somebody, I want a divorce, because I learned my lesson, which is you don't mention that until you have put everything in place for the best outcome for yourself that you could ever have if you did get divorced. You don't speak about it to an abuser with the expectation that they're going to treat you with equality, reciprocity, mutuality, respect, decency, compassion, empathy, conscience, or with anything even remotely like remorse. They're not going to. This is a person who does not work that way. So if we're going to say, I want a divorce, it's great to say it to an attorney. It's great to say it to your counselor. It's great to say to your most trusted friend who can practice confidentiality. If you have a close confidant, you tell them, but we do not tell the person that we are wanting to separate from or divorce what our plan is until we've already got the plan fully formed, because they will use those words, I want a divorce, to, in some cases, if they're a person with high antisocial personality disorder type traits, if they're sociopath or psychopath, if they are highly narcissistic, if they are a malignant narcissist, that means either a dark triad or a dark quad. If they're any of those things, hold on to your hat, because they're going to take you for a real bumpy ride. And I love putting my story out to the world so that they can be a little bit more aware of what they say, who they share information with, and what kind of vexatious lawsuit practices a person who has high antisocial traits would engage in. Because if they're hurting you bad enough that you had to separate from them, just think of what they're capable of doing in a legal, in the legal aspect. Okay. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. If you have any comments, I would love to read them. Please put them in. I love to answer my comments. If you find value at my channel, please like, subscribe, share. And like I said, put the comments in the comment section, hit the notification bell. And I really, really do enjoy making these videos for my viewers. I'm so close to 900 subscribers. And one of the things I recently started was having SEO and new thumbnails done for my videos. So my videos, when you find them in the feed, they're going to look a little bit different, but I'm really, really wanting to reach more viewers. And I had to purchase some SEO and somebody to make the thumbnails for my videos. And because I just don't have the skills to do that. My focus is more on trauma and abuse recovery. And so I'm really excited about the expansion that my channel is having. And I welcome you to invite more of your friends to join us, because I'm trying to build, I've been since November of 2023, building a safe community on YouTube for people to find resource and support for trauma and abuse. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much from my heart. From the deepest part of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you who come to learn here and visit my channel. If you're interested in becoming a client for certified trauma recovery coaching with me, Lin Bouthillier, CTRC, I would love to hear from you. You can find me at linbouthillier.com. You can email me, lin@linbouthillier.com, or you can call my number, which is 716-994-3052. And I really look forward to hearing from you if you would like to find out more about certified trauma recovery coaching and how it may help you on your trauma recovery journey. Have the best day, everyone. Remember, self-care is never, ever selfish. It is essential to our well-being, and that you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma and abuse recovery. See you next time. Bye.